Welcome once again to Seekers of the Malediction, your source for discussion on tips, tricks, and strategy in our favorite miniatures card game. As ever, we are a competitive podcast, and our opinions are going to be focused through that lens. I'm Zach. I have Pat with me. Take it away, Pat.
Yeah, thanks. So we're gonna pick up right where we left off last time and continue our card reviews. This week we will be doing Conclave. As a reminder, we'll be going through each card, giving our insights, and then we'll be giving a letter grade A through F. A for Zach and I are bombs. This should probably go in almost every deck. It's gonna help you win the game. There's very rarely a bad place to play it. Bs are your staples that you are gonna want to look to fill your deck with most of the time. And then the C range are more niche cards. Maybe there's a couple builds or deck lists that you want to include them on, but for the most part, they're below the curve. And then Ds are just, they're not promising right now in the current state of the game. Maybe there's future releases that will make them better. And then Fs are reserved for cards that are just not playable. We don't see them ever really working out. But yeah, with that, let's get into the first one. All right, we have the Akhenzan Shieldmage. I hope I'm saying that correctly. It is a 7 cost elite unit, 2 attack, 3/2 damage, 8 range, 6 speed, 13 defense, and 12 health. Resistance 1. Whenever this unit is dealt damage, it suffers 1 fewer damage. Protection 1. Once per activation, this unit may absorb damage that would be dealt to a nearby ally. Damage exceeding this unit's health is dealt to the original target. Zach, why don't you take this first one?
Yeah, so I think, as ever, when we are reviewing 7 cost units or really even 6 and above units, we're kind of looking for defensive tech. We're kind of hoping that they aren't going to end up being mastery liabilities. They need to bring something interesting to the table to see play. Um, 13, 12, it's a little low, but we do have that defensive tech and resistance one. I think protection one brings something unique. Maybe not unique to the faction as a whole, but unique in terms of what the faction needs. And this kind of serves a real need for Conclave. And I think it having 8 range, decent damage, I like it. I think it's got high playability. Is going to see a lot of play in. Um, both of I guess Landriel, both the Conclave Seekers. I don't necessarily see it splashing too much outside of the actual Conclave faction, into Morta, say, or something like that. But I like it. It's a good card. Resistance one is great. It applies after protection, um, which is something to note. Um, yeah. What do you think?
Yeah, I think Resistance 1 might be my second favorite ability on a unit after Spell Immunity. So I'm pretty high on anything that has that. Protection 1 is, or just protection in general, is also really great. The ability to just spread damage in this game um, is really good if it's not the thing that is wanting to be targeted anyways, which, this gets into that conundrum of it's just, like you mentioned, it's a 7 cost unit, which is going to be a high target usually for your opponents to take off the board and get that mastery, right? Um, but at the same time, it's maybe it's 3/2 and it's range 8, so it doesn't have the biggest offensive output, but it can still be annoying. But like, I guess what I'm trying to say is that maybe it's not like in terms of trying to kill things. It's kind of annoying to kill, and it's really not doing too much like to be annoying. So maybe this does lower your priority when you're facing against it. So yeah, I mean, I think both the abilities are really good, and I think it's really well, a defensive piece essentially that I would add.
Yeah, yeah. I actually really love that it has the range 8, the ability to sort of plink away as it sits back, and does its job with protection and resistance. It's solid, solid unit.
Yep. Yeah. So I gave it a B minus. What did you give it?
I gave it a solid B. I think it's going to see a lot of play, and I like it quite a bit actually. I think it fits into my play style quite a bit.
Yeah, the only thing is holding me back from it is I think this is the only 7 I actually like. Well, no, the Shattered Throne one is pretty good, okay too, but 7 is just approaching that territory where it has to like I want to be able to when I draw a 7 always feel like I want to play this card, and like I feel like there's so many situations where it's like I can't put this on the table because if it dies, then I lose the game, stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
I think it's
so
got a few things going for it with Conclave Seekers, right? And that Landriel has ways to protect it. Polynor has that extra 5 echo at the beginning of the game, which actually makes it feel better in terms of being able to play it. But its mastery liability is still a thing for sure.
yep. All right, we'll move on to the next one. Amblis Transposition. It's a 4-cost unique spell, channel speed. Swap the position of 2 units that are within 10 inches from each other, ignoring obstacles. Why don't you take this one too, Zach?
I think, yeah, this spell is incredible. It has a huge number of applications. Um, it affects enemies, it affects friendlies. Um, the versatility, we could probably go on and on and on and on about it. It can steal relics, it can set up offensive plays, it can set up defensive plays, it can, enable strategic retreats, it can win you the game. This card is really good. And I think it's appropriately costed too. I think 4 is a real sweet spot for it. On conclave terrain, it's amazingly costed. Yeah, I like it a lot. I think it's an incredible spell.
Yeah, very versatile. 10 inches is really big. I mean, if you're, because it's 10 inches from the closest points on their base, so like, not even line of effect because it can go through walls, it's just 10 inches, right? And when you're playing on the standard board, which I think is going to be the standard is 2.5 by 2.5, this is essentially a third of the board, but even more so because very rarely are you playing on like the edges of the table, right? Everything's kind of a little bit more centralized. So this thing
Yeah.
just hits a huge portion of the board. Um, yeah, like you said, I mean the biggest play is just stealing relics, right? If someone is ends their turn nearby a relic, you just swap it with one of your guys, and your guys gets to pick it up at the end. I think that's gonna steal a lot of games out from under people. Um, yeah, I gave it an A minus. What about you?
I give it a solid A. And honestly, the only reason it's not an A plus spell for me is just because it does require a little bit of setup. It requires a little bit of situational, board placement. But beyond that, I think it's fantastic.
Yep. Yep. It does require good positioning, which I think is something that, like, we've been just grading cards on value. We really haven't given much gameplay on positioning and stuff, but like, I think positioning more than what's even in your deck is essential to every single miniatures game. So those of you that are coming from, a trading card game or something like that and haven't really played with minis much, you'll learn how even a really good player with a horrible deck can just beat you on board because of positioning and understanding ranges and stuff like that. So this is a spell that I think maybe for someone that's brand new to miniatures is going to be really hard to get value out of, but people that have more experience will definitely make this stretch and get maximum value. So, all right, next card. Brewing Fate, 2-cost Echo Elite. It is Swift Speed. After a player makes an attack roll, choose one. The attack gets +3 to hit or -3 to hit. Yeah, I'll go with this one. To me, this
Sure.
uh, blue has a bunch of strong spells. I think it is arguably that has the strongest spells in the game, and because of that, I just don't see this making the cut very often. That being said, hitting in blue seems very important compared to other factions. A lot of like push and pull effects that we'll get into, and just a lot of their units are seem kind of a little bit pillow fisted and just really want to, like, I feel like hitting is more important to them. I don't know why, it's just a feeling I have, and it's really around that push and pull. So maybe this can see like a one of in some decks, or but I think that for the most part it's just getting cut out. Yeah, do you have what are your thoughts on it?
That's basically it. I think it's actually a good spell. It being swift, being able to respond to a die roll is incredibly strong. Being able to ensure that push or pull happens when you need it to is incredibly strong. Um, all of that said, I think you're right. I mean, I think this decent spell suffers because it's in Conclave, where your choices of fantastic cards are just numerous. It's getting pushed out of decks simply because the quality of spells in blue is so high.
Yeah, and one of the things, unlike Magic the Gathering or other card games, is like playing on board is always going to be relevant in this game, right? And so like because of that, you need to hit units. I find in my list, if I'm below, like I'm trying to hit around 15 units every single deck. If I'm going below that, I have to have like a really good card draw engine or something that can keep it going so I can dig for cards, or tutoring like Morda or something like that. So like that only leaves around 15 spots for spells, and that's the main reason why this doesn't get hit. Is like I don't think you can ever play a deck with like 20 spells and only 10 units. I just, unless there's like a ridiculous card draw engine, um, I don't see it happening. So
No, I think that that's accurate, and I think this just gets pushed out due to space in most decks.
yeah, and
I gave it a B minus. I think it could probably be a C plus. I think it's good. It just, unfortunately for the card, exists in a faction of fantastic.
yeah, I gave it a D just because I really don't think it's gonna make the cut. Like there's no, it's unfortunate. Like it's really like a lot of my letter gradings aren't really just taking the card. It's also saying, okay, does this card have a place in decks and stuff? And I don't see it. I'm playing around with trying to fit one in Palinor because my Palinor deck, I'm realizing that hitting is very important. So like, and he can like get double value out of it from flashing it from your discard, right? So like maybe there's a one of in there that is a relevant, but it's really hard to contest with what else is in the faction. So yeah, maybe
Yeah.
that's a little wrong. Maybe it's like more of a D plus, C minus, but I'm gonna stick with my D, my initial instincts. So all right, we have Conclave Artillerist. It's a 4 cost basic unit, 2 attack, 3/1 damage, 10 range, 6 speed, 11 defense, 8 health. Pinpoint. This unit can trace line of sight through other units and spell strike. If you played a spell this activation, this unit gets +1 until the end of the activation. Um, this is, I'll go with this one too. This is okay filler to me. Like this is probably what you want to reach for your basic unit. And I think that, we've seen other things like this, like I guess the next one, the Scholar, is more shaman level. The range 10 is good, 3/1 gun is okay, spell strike. It's just, it feels like it's lacking something to me. And a lot of the Conclave, I mean, Zach, you and I were kind of texting about this in like preparation last
Yeah.
night. A lot of the humans in Conclave just lack like an identity. They're doing the spell strike stuff and like empower, but like I don't think those two abilities are enough by themselves. And kind of like as we were having our discussion, I kind of fell on like I wish that they were a little bit more accurate, right? And I kind of talked about this with Brewing Fate beforehand. I wish this guy just had was a little bit more consistent hitting. Um, and that's just kind of like general for all of them, like the Weaver, any human in Conclave. So I'll let you go. I'm kind of rambling on here, but I'm not in love with
No, I,
this
I
as a
I
basic
think
unit.
I think that's accurate. I mean, it's good abilities, obviously excellent range. Its issue is, yeah, it's grazing for one, is brutal. Its defenses are rock bottom. I mean, 11-8 is not good for a 4 cost unit, and I don't know that it is doing enough in taking advantage of its 10 range in most games to ever really make it worth it. And you're right. I think that this is a problem in Conclave in general. I think Conclave has some really fantastic units, as we'll get to, but I think their 4 spot is lacking,
Yeah,
honestly. And Scholar or Artillerist, and we'll get to the Scholar, is, they're both existing in that 4 spot, and I think neither of them really quite pulls the weight you want them to for that 4 spot. Um,
yeah.
so I like the range, I like the
It's
abilities. It's just not doing enough.
it's not even the 4 spot. It's the basic unit, well, like 3 or 4 spot that can do damage, right? So like I feel like all like this is the guy that's supposed to do damage at the 3 and 4 spot, but like you compare it with what else is in the other faction. So Tarek Beast at 2, which can hit at 4/2 with Swarm. Cabra Mauler, which has 3/2 Wild Strike that can hit at 5/2. You have a Crossbowman, which can hit at 5/3 with range, right? Or the in black you have the 2 skeletons, which can essentially both hit at 4/2. You know what I mean? So like to me, those
Yeah,
just seem like it's free. Where this one with Spell Strike, like Spell Strike, I'm a little low on because you have to do extra. It takes an extra card, which is a lot. Where
yeah,
like the other
yeah.
ones are just like Like Swarm is just like, oh, I engage it with something else I'm already playing on board, right? So that's kind of why I'm feeling like this guy's like a little bit low. So
Yeah, yeah, and I think it's the same with the Scholar, like I said, as we'll get to in that that's kind of this the issue is they require extra cards to perform, and you kind of want a bit of independent damage from your 4 drop. And they just don't have it. I mean, even with their defenses, okay, they can hit at range, but it's not hard to close the gap. It's got 8 health.
mhm.
And so then what you're saying, oh, well, there's, protection in Conclave. It's another card.
Yeah,
It's another card not doing something else. So
yeah. All right, I gave this a C minus.
I did as well. C
Yeah,
minus. I think it's got great range, but it just isn't quite doing enough.
yep. And like I said, maybe we haven't seen like I feel like the attack set is something that the design team hasn't really played around. Like it's very average, right? Like everything is average. There's no like Seekers have like 4 or 5 hit, I think it is, and then you have your uniques that hit like that 3 or 4 range, and then like you know what I mean. It's all uniform, and it's really just driven based on the the rarity of the unit, right? I think it would have been really cool to see Conclave been like, hey, this is the accurate faction. Yes, they're a little bit pillow fisted, but at least they're going to be hitting all the time, and so you can expect that top end damage, like even if it's like a little low. But yeah, that's neither here or there. All right, next one. Conclave Scholar, 4 cost basic unit, 1 attack, 3/1 damage, 6 range, 6 speed, 10 defense, 8 health. Empower spell. During this unit's activation, whenever a unit suffers damage from a spell you play, it suffers 1 extra damage. Essence Binder, 2. Whenever an enemy is defeated, this unit in this unit's activation, you gain 2 echo. Why don't you go first on this one?
Yeah, unfortunately I think this card is a trap. Um, Meaning it's a card that on its face seems like it should be really good. You put it on the table and it just isn't generally.
Mm-hmm.
I begin with the obvious. Its 2 abilities are great. Essence Binder and Empower Spell are both great, but they are just not utilized well on a 4 cost unit that has stats this terrible. And unfortunately, I think this card, its performance is just weighed down way too heavily by its poor stats. And as a result, I've actually played this card a decent amount, and it just doesn't feel great. I'm pretty down on it, to be honest. So
Yeah. I was just curious because like when I looked at this again for like right in this, I just popped in my head and I'm like, oh, this is essentially just the disciple, right? Like instead of curse, it has the empower, and I just switched back to see what we gave that. I gave that a D, and you gave that a D plus. I feel like this is a little bit better than the disciple just due to empower spell. But I mean, even then, like yeah, that just the range 6 3/1
Disciple's
gun.
3 cost too, right?
Oh, is he? I thought he was 4. Okay, never mind. Yeah, I guess so.
So
Yeah,
I mean,
that
that's
feels a
part
little
of, I
worse.
think, yeah, I think that's part of the analysis on this card for sure.
Yeah, yeah, I think you hit on everything. It's just a little bit too weak. And like Palinor is the one that you're thinking you want to play this on, so you can,
Yeah.
Palinor is playing from hand. This thing's going to be playing from your discard, and it's going to be gaining that empower for your Twinflames, right? Which is we'll get to, but I don't know, for a unit that just wants to hang back into, whatever the Conclave train is called for the -1 on channel spells and do, I don't know if that gets enough, right? So yeah, I guess I also am curious. I gave this a D plus. I think it's a little bit better than the Disciple, but yeah, it is interesting that that's 4 cost. So what?
I gave it a D. Yeah, I am unfortunately not super high on this card. I think it just requires too many things going right to make up for those stats.
Yep. All right, next card. We got Demanifest. It's a 6 cost unique spell, channel speed. Return a non-seeker unit and any of its equipped non-relic attachments to its owner's hand. It loses any equipped relic. You can go first, Zach.
This is probably the best spell in the game. Um, it's high cost, that's true. You're going to get a reduction if you're playing Conclave terrain. Regardless, 6 cost is probably just fine for this card. You don't get mastery from the returning the unit to your opponent's hand. That's true, but it's unbelievably powerful. It literally just erases a unit off the board for at least a turn and makes your opponent essentially just lose that echo. Um, it has a number of uses. It's unbelievably good, frankly. It's kind of in a tier of itself
Yeah.
in a lot of ways. So
Yep. Only hard removal in the game. I mean, we have unmake, but that's still dependent on is the unit have 10 HP or left, right? Like this is just you point at a model and say, I don't want to see that anymore. Put it back in your hand. To me, this spell's existence is a big reason why I am very low on the 9 and 8 cost uniques, is because when you hit that on that, it is so punishing. Not only are you losing tempo, you're losing echo, right? You can't even play it for the same amount that they hit Demanifest on, which is why me personally, I really only like to play Sestinar and the Guardian for spell immunity, right? Because like this protects them from that. I mean, I will play the other ones occasionally, but like I have to have a really good justification. And I mean, even hitting this on some of the 7 drops feels really bad. So yeah, I just the thing I don't like playing against this is that there is just no counterplay. Like there's like you cannot prevent against this. Like I used to be really worried about um, first turn running, picking up a relic, and then them at the end of the turn demanifesting my guy, and I don't get to pick up the relic. And so I used to run 2 guys, and I still do that sometimes. Run 2 guys so I can guarantee like picking up the relic, right? And then that's also good for like guarding like against TK and stuff like that. But if they have this, they can just wait another turn and then hit you next turn, and it drops that activation. You lose that active. I mean, it's so punishing. This card. Yeah, it
yeah,
messes with the number of activations you're planning on near that turn, right? Too like it's just
I
yeah,
think too, it part of what makes it so powerful as well. I mean, obviously, if you are literally hitting something that is worth more echo than the spell itself even is, it just is immediately a benefit. Um, but the fact that it can effectively mess with the win con by returning something holding a relic, and so you are returning that, unit to your opponent's hand, and they're losing 10 mastery, and they're losing whatever relic they chose, honestly often makes it just totally beneficial to even play it on weaker basic units that grab something. And the cost disparity doesn't even hurt. Yeah, A plus card.
yeah. The I don't think there's
Potentially S. I mean, if it
yeah
was, if we had an S tier, this might be there.
yeah. I think it's easily argued that this is the best card in the game right now. So
Yeah,
all right,
yeah.
moving on. We have Dimension Breach, 4 cost, elite spell, channel speed, play a unit and deploy it anywhere on the battlefield. Do note, just like other cards that are placing models from on the battlefield from wherever, you do have to pay the echo for that unit that you are deploying. Yeah, you can go, Zach, on this one.
I think that's what you just mentioned is its downfall. I mean, this card has the potential for really unique plays, potentially game-winning plays, right? It can do really interesting things. It just costs a ton. 4 cost plus the cost of the unit is just a ton. I mean, it has to be a really good play. I think that this card's way overcosted. I'd like it a lot more if it was 2, maybe 3,
Yeah.
maybe 3.
Okay.
Because then you at least get it to 2 on Conclave terrain. But outside, like it just at 4
Yeah.
seems really tough to make positive use of.
I do agree with you. I think it is overcosted. I don't, well, no, I think it's appropriately costed, but I think it is too expensive to play. So the other cards or effects in the game that put units on board during mid activation, like in the activation phase, is the Legion spell, which requires you defeating a model and then playing a fallen, has to be a fallen from your graveyard, and then you can deploy it in that same spot, and it gains all the relics and any equipment that the defeated model had. So that's super situational. That's 2 cost, and you still have to pay the echo. And then the other one is there's a Conclave, or not Conclave, Shattered Throne one, which will let you deploy a model into an engaged unit, essentially. So if you have another model that's engaged, you can drop this mid-activation. That is also 2 cost. So those are both situational and also very limited in terms of where you can deploy the model. This is anywhere on the battlefield, and there's no strings attached, right? So like playing this for 2, that's just not right. Like compared to the other cards, right? Unless you want to go back and argue those other cards should be lower, which I think those are pretty good cost of 2. 3, like yeah, this is it would be playable, but I would argue it's too good then. I don't know. That's debatable here or there, but 4, I think is conservative. But with that said, just this on top of the Echo, I think is too much. But I don't know what else to do with it, right? It's just if they wanted to bring down the
It's
cost, they should have added like conditional, right? Like you can deploy it nearby another unit on the battlefield, right? To
yeah,
kind of give it like rein it in just a little bit, because like you had a game recently where you're playing Morta and the opponent was playing Thunder Steps and he was playing on your half of the board and he just ignored the 2 relics like in his deployment zone, right? Like by him. And if you played this and you could just go past him and just pick them up, you could have ended the game like on turn 2 or something like that. You already had like 1 relic and you killed Thunder Steps. You just
that's
drop them back
fair.
there and you know
I think its biggest issue is just the way that Echo works turn by turn, and inevitably this is a late game card, not because of its effects necessarily, but just because of its cost.
yeah.
Um, and you're foregoing a body, probably, right? It's 4 extra Echo on top of playing the body you already had.
It
Um,
is 3 cost
it,
in the
it, it,
train, right? So it is channel
yeah,
speed.
that's true. That's true. Cost wise, it feels like a late game card that you don't really necessarily need or want late game. I mean, maybe you can shut a game out, but
You have 2 drops that can pick up relics in Conclave. So
that's true. That's true. That's true.
so
I'm pretty low on this card though. I've
yeah.
got it at a D plus.
Yeah, I'm arguing for it, and it's a D for me as well. So we could just move on. But oh, that's not supposed to be in there. All right, we have the next card, which is duplicate 5 cost unique spell channel speed. Search your deck for a copy of an ally you own. Play and deploy this copy nearby that ally without spending Echo. Shuffle your deck. Okay, so a lot going on here. So in order to get value out of this, you need to hit it on like a 6 or 7 drop Echo value. I get that it's technically a card draw as well. Well, it's not even a card draw, it's a card replacement, right? You're replacing this card with the one you're fetching from your deck.
Yeah, yeah, it's
Um,
a tutor.
yeah. So most 6/7 drops aren't that good, I would argue. So if you're trying to get value there, and then I'm also terrified that this is just dead in hand way too often, where you already have both in hand or something like that, or one is already dead and you can't, and then you draw this and it's like, well, I can't fetch the other one or something like that. So yeah, I think it's appropriately costed because this one doesn't include the Echo. I guess maybe this would have been cooler if it was like 1 or 2 costs, and then you still had to pay the Echo on top of it, like all the other ones. Um, but yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
I
that
think
might
it's
be
just too
interesting.
clunky. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, it's a unique spell that does really unique things. I think it has playability. It it does cool stuff, but it's in a faction that's already trying to make room for its bangers. It's yeah, again, it sort of requires a lot going right for it to be super awesome, but it is playable. I mean, it's unique,
yeah.
being a unique.
Yeah,
So
it is. It
I
is adding units mid activation, which is something I've become more aware of as I'm more experienced in the game. So like my initial rating is probably too low on it because that is just a recent concept that we picked up on in the last like week or two. Is like cards that add units mid activation are very strong. So like hitting this, I'm just trying to think like again, it's Conclave. So like, what do you want to hit this on? Like like I don't know. There's not too like I'm thinking even basic units at this point. Like maybe does
yeah
Landrill want to cast this on a knight or you know what I mean, a basic knight or a priest or something. You know what I mean? Like does that feel good? I don't know. Uh,
yeah potentially. I don't know. It's an odd one, but I think it has play. I think it just is going to take some work to make it the best that it can be. I have it at a C minus. I
yeah,
I think it's interesting. but I don't know where it's going to see play yet.
Yeah, I've passed over this card so many times, and just even literally like right now in this conversation, me thinking about it in Laundry, I'm like, wait, what can I hit in that? And like, if I'm hitting this on a knight or a warden or something, I'm like, wait a second, that's adding units mid activation. Does this have a home? Like my brain is kind of racing. So my initial grade was a D minus, but I could be way off here, and I'm willing to admit that. But yeah, we'll just go with that because I haven't. I honestly have been passing over this card so much that maybe it takes some additional thought to really make shine.
Yeah.
So, all right, next card, Gateway Guardian, 9 cost unique, 3 attack, 5/3 damage, 5 speed, 15 defense, 16 health, resistance 1, spell immunity. Whenever a spell would affect this unit, it may ignore that spell, and then protection 2. So twice per activation, this unit may absorb damage that would be dealt to a nearby ally. You can go on this one, Zach.
Yeah, this is fantastic. Absolute house of a unit. Absolutely a staple. I think it's probably the best 9-drop. It's potentially the best unique unit. Great stats, super defensive, decent damage. Spell immunity is insane. Resistance 1 is great. Protection 2 is great. This is the gold standard for gold cards, at least units. Yeah, literally nothing bad to say about this card.
Had a recent game where this card wasn't even in my opponent's hand yet. He revealed it and kept it on top, and it made me pretty much quit the game because I knew he was going to draw it next turn, and I knew it was coming down, and there was nothing I could do about it, and it was just going to steal the game away from me. Yeah, so it's so damaging. The defense 15 is a real problem. like with so many hit
It's
points
so
and
good.
resistance, and you're glancing it, and if you're glancing this with tiny things like basic units, that 1 damage when you glance isn't gonna do anything, and it feels really bad. So yeah, most of the times when this thing is guarding something, you're gonna want to be shooting the other thing, which is yeah, it's just rough all around. I agree. This is the best non-seeker unit in the game right now. Yeah, I gave it an A+.
A plus. Yep.
Yeah, I mean,
Fantastic.
if we think about resistance, like this thing essentially is like let's just say you're hitting at 4s, right? And so like even without like taking out all the math of how much it's glancing, right? Like this thing is like probably realistically like 20 plus HP. Like it's like 22,
Mhm.
23. You know what I mean? It has the most HP in
Yeah.
the entire game, which is just absurd. So yeah, this is going in every single one of my decks that have access to it. I don't care what I'm trying to
100%.
do. So, all right. We have Liastrum's Discharge, 3 cost basic spell channel speed, deal 2 damage to an enemy. If a hit was scored against it during this activation, deal 4 damage instead. I think this spell is pretty good because of Palinord's Legacy. Otherwise, it's just okay. Damage ratio 3 echo for 2 damage is really low, and then 3 damage or 3 echo for 4 damage is still below par, like below the ratio I want to see. I'd like to see 3 damage for six, but I think right now it's needed in Palinor, and I guess it feels a little bit high costed to me. Like I would have liked to see this at -1, but I understand that's a problem because of the train that gives you -1 on channel spells, right? Like so.
This is an odd card. Just because on paper it's in a vacuum, it's not fantastic. But you're right, in Polynor, it's a staple. When you're stacking things like Polynor's ability to play multiple channels or flashback channels from the graveyard or the Conclave terrain, etc., all of a sudden this spell gets to be pretty good. I mean, when it's doing 5 damage for 2, that's pretty solid. When it's doing, 5 damage for 2 and then another 5 damage for 3, later in the round, it's really good.
Yeah,
But in a vacuum, it's not a good card. So it's an odd one.
yep,
I have it at a B minus because of it being really odd in a vacuum and then really pretty decent in Polynor.
yeah. Yeah, I have it as C plus. I think we're on the same wavelength. We just fell different sides of the grading scale. I mean, it's C plus because it's auto includes in Polynor, but I'm not putting this in Morta or Landriel as of right now, unless like they get access to Empower units or something like that in the future. This really needs Empower, and Uford be playing the blue terrain essentially. Is those are the two criteria that I would put it in a deck essentially.
Yep. Yep.
All right. Next, we have Liastrum Stride, 1 cost. An ally performs a move without provoking a retaliation. Why don't you go with this?
I think that this card's fantastic. 1 cost, I think, for a free move that doesn't provoke retaliation is really strong. On Conclave terrain, it's unbelievably good. Um, I think it's. I don't know that it's a staple. I think it's going to see a ton of play, and I don't know when it does see play that it's going to see a full 3 copies. I think it's very likely a 2 copy card.
Hmm.
Um, I think it's really fantastic with certain seekers. Namely, I think it's amazing in Polynor. Comboing with his ability to play 2 channels from hand is, one being a free move and then one being a damage spell, and then he gets to shoot twice as well, is really strong. And really just, again, strategic retreats, setting up charges, you name it. Um, I think it's a solid spell, and I think it's really good.
Yeah. Uh, I think it's pretty good right now. I think it gets edged out as not one of the staples in blues with all the other blue spells right now, or in Conclave. I think that uh, I'm I'm really excited for when they do the Primal Blood Conclave Seeker. I have a suspicion that they will go uh, into like a Battlecaster, like a Battlecaster, like moving fast, casting spells to get you into position, right? Like I just see them using the magic, humans or whatever in Conclave. And Battlecaster, I think, is the name of the card down in here that has Spell Strike and she hits at like 5/3. I could see more of that line and then using this to just fly around the board and hit things really hard, which is totally up my alley, and that's the style I like to play. And I think this will get better in that dual colored faction. But
Yeah,
yeah, right now I think that Pawnor wants a couple of these, but I don't know if there's anything else. But yeah, I love it for 1 cost or 0 cost on the Conclave terrain. So yeah, I gave it a C. What about you?
I gave it a B plus. I like it a
Yeah.
lot.
All right. Got the next one, which is highly controversial between us. We got Momentum Weaver, 6 cost unique, 3 attack, 4/2 damage, 10 range, 6 speed, 13 defense, 10 health. Knockback 5 whenever this unit scores a hit. It may push the defender up to 5 inches. Pull 5 whenever this unit scores a range hit. It may pull the defender up to 5 inches. You can go first.
I I love this unit on paper. I think on paper, push pull effects, particularly at 5 inches, great range, decent damage, decent attack, are all awesome. Um, I think on the table, this is, for whatever reason, it seems to struggle to perform. And there's probably, a deeper analysis to be had there on why this card seems to struggle to perform. It could be because, it needs to often move and shoot, and you're so reliant on hitting in one attack that it becomes a problem. Um, I don't know. It doesn't quite play out on the table like it seems like it should on paper. It's really reliant on its defense. I mean, that's an issue. 10 health is very low, particularly on a 6 cost. Um, I think it still sees a lot of play. I think it's still good, but I will admit it's been struggling, I think, to perform when I put it on the table.
Yep. I think you hit on it in that this thing always has to move and shoot once. So unless you're casting like Liastrum Stride or something like that, like it never gets to double shoot. And that's because if you're playing a good player, they're not going to put their models in a position where you can push and pull them and get good effect out of it, right? So it's like
Right,
almost like it's a blank
exactly.
card, like you're paying for abilities that don't apply unless you move, like have movement kind of.
Right,
Um,
right. Right. Your opponent is either going to position in such a way that you are not getting 2 shots on them by
mhm.
being out of range, by being out of line of sight or whatever, or they're going to position in such a way that along the route of the shots, there
Hmm.
is no real benefit to a push or a pull.
Yep.
And so, yeah, in order to get either multiple shots or a shot in general that are useful, it needs something more to facilitate that.
Yep.
And that I think is you're right. That's the issue with it.
Yep. This goes back to, I mean, give this thing 4 attack or even 5 attack. Like this thing wants to hit. It's not hitting that hard. 4/2 for 6 cost. Like
Yeah.
I don't know. Let it hit. Let it do its thing. Like let us have the fun that we want to have with it, right? I don't know. That's my yeah. This is my hill. The first hill of Malediction that I think I'm willing to die on. That this card is just not good. Every time someone's played it on with me, they've hit, and the push hasn't. They do one hit, they do 4 damage, or they glance, and that feels even worse. And then I just end up killing it. I don't know, because like the 6 cost is mastery. It's like it puts a huge target on its head. It's 13 defense, 10 health. It's like cool. I want to kill that. That's really easy to kill, and it's going to be doing annoying things to me. So guess what? You're priority number one for me, and it just
Yeah.
seems to
Yeah.
always get targeted first and killed. Um, so yeah,
Grade
yeah, and that,
wise for this one, I actually had it at a B plus. And then the more I played it and watched it being played, I actually reduced it in my notes down to a B. Um, I still think it's really good on paper. It's hard to facilitate on the tabletop.
yep. Yeah, I give it a C minus. I think I'm not really. I think it's bad right now, but I think that there could be things in the game that make better. If you give more, like I said, in that the Primal Blood Conclave Seeker, if it has more movement effects or ways like to facilitate movement, I think that's great. But I just think that right now it's not benefiting from the abilities on its card. So. And I also I'll just say I hate, like I said, I've already mentioned D20 is not the system for me. I'm not that my dice are cursed, but whenever I really need my dice to pull through, I've failed like 3 or 4 times now on a game winning moment where if I do a pushback or something like that with whether it's like snap chain to pull them in or something like that, or a pushback on a mauler, I never hit it, and it's like it's always crushing to me. I'm still uh, very much abused by not being able to hit when I absolutely need it. So yeah. All right. Neutralizing Ward, 3 cost elite spell, swift speed. As a channel is played, cancel it before resolving its effects. Do note that this does not cancel swift spells because we have definitely played it wrong before. But with that being said, why don't you go ahead, Zach?
It's a permission spell. And it's amazing. It is limited to channel spells. It's still incredibly strong. It's a blue staple. It is the reason why I am playing Malediction today. I am that dirty, blue player in Magic the Gathering, and had a buddy demo this game and was like, they have counter spells. And I was like, I will now try this game. Um, I love playing permission spells as much as others hate them. And so, yeah, I think this card is really good. Um, yeah, I think it's a blue staple. It may not always be at 2 copies depending on your build. Um, but I would venture to guess that 8 times out of 10, it's at a full 2 copies in anyone affiliated with blue.
Yep. Yeah, I think that Malediction did a really good job creating a counter in a miniature games that doesn't feel too oppressive. Like I think that this feels natural in the game. Like I don't know. Um, yeah, I don't have anything else to add. I'm happy to see it. I think it adds unique gameplay that is not otherwise in a miniature game. So and just with like the card draw effects, because like if you put this on like a model, right, in a typical miniature game where that just like negates the effect, that model is immediately S tier and it's like oppressive and stuff like that. But like with the deck mechanic, you don't know if the opponent has it in their hand. There's not a chance they hit, right. It's not always prevalent. So like it creates these unique scenarios where you have to like play around even though they might not even have it. So I love it. I think it's
And
healthy for the game. I gave it an
I
A.
agree. A solid A. Yep.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. Next one, we have Rewrite Destiny, 2 cost basic spell, channel speed. Look at the top 2 cards of your deck. You may place any number of them on the bottom of your deck. Place the rest back on the top in any order. You can go for this one.
This one, So let me give a preface on Rewrite Destiny. So you flipped over to Runefold Ward on your
Oh,
on
thank
your.
you.
I'll preface Rewrite Destiny with this card got better in my eyes based on current sort of undeveloper or designer confirmed rulings that I think we'll have some clarification on with the coming FAQ and Malediction and or errata document, whatever that ends up being. I think as it initially stood when we first reviewed Rewrite Destiny and first looked at Conclave prior to that ruling we saw online, it felt a little pointless in a faction where the legacies were all about filtering with a little bit of built-in card advantage or virtual card advantage. It felt like it was kind of just a waste of space in a lot of 30s. I noted initially back when we did the first sort of notes on the cards that it comboed with Landriel some, but that it was kind of taking the space of better spells potentially, um, and that it didn't quite give the card advantage to make it as beneficial as maybe I wanted it to be. Now I'm going to pivot to the present ruling, and that present ruling is with regards to Landriel's legacy, and that is that um, the second ability on her legacy, Arc of Lamentation, um, is able to interrupt the first ability, which means that it can also interrupt Rewrite Destiny in the sense that you can look at the top two cards with Rewrite Destiny. You can choose to reveal one to, of course, draw it if it's a spell, or to leave it where it is and gain two echo. Because the arc then interrupted Rewrite Destiny, it puts the card back on top, but Rewrite Destiny is still considered to be resolving, which means that you can bottom it, um, just as you would, per the wording of Rewrite Destiny, or in the case of Landriel's legacy, you could do it with her legacy as well in a different context, meaning this card becomes the ability to scry or filter really heavily while also gaining echo. Um, so if it's a card you want, if it's a spell that you are looking at with your Red Destiny, you're drawing it, this becomes a card draw for two, or if you're on Conclave Terrain, a card draw for one, and you get to decide if you're going to top or bottom the other card. If both cards are something that you don't want, or you could utilize the echo, it also lets you fully filter both cards and still benefit from two echo, which could be literally a net positive if you're playing on Conclave Terrain. That makes this card a lot better than I initially thought. And so I was pretty low on its grade initially, and we'll get there. I would bump it up probably at least a letter grade based on that ruling.
Yeah.
Um, Take it away.
Yeah, I mean, you already said that we graded these before that whole debacle. And again, we're going to preface that that is not, there was a whole day and a half debate on Landrill's legacy and stuff. And the community accepted ruling, I guess, right now is just based on playtesters, Bruno, for those of you who know him, kind of saying this is the way it works and interpreting some previous comments at designers, but like designers have since gone radio silent. I think that they're focusing on the FAQ and wanting to put that out as soon as possible, and that's where they'll get there. But like until then, we don't know how really. We don't have a definitive answer of how Landrill's legacy works. But funny enough, in my comments, I said it wants to combo off something Landrill, I guess? Question mark. But yeah, I still didn't think that my interpretation at that time of how Landrill's work still wasn't good enough for this. I have now been if how we're interpreting and the community is interpreting the legacy to work where you can gain two echo and still bottom the card, I think it's very strong. Um, but I have it at a D minus right now. So what do you have it at?
I'm at a D, and yeah, I think it bumps to a C, probably, maybe
Yeah.
even a C plus, if that ruling is correct.
Yeah, Landriel wants a lot of cards though, so I don't know if this still gets fit in, to be honest with you, because I think that we're only looking at it like this doesn't do anything that I'm aware of for Polynor. Morta doesn't want this because you're shuffling deck when you're tutoring and stuff like that. So like right now, I think Landriel is the only case that we're really looking at this.
100%.
So all right, We'll move on to Runefold Ward. It is a 4-cost unique spell, Swift Speed. As a spell is played, cancel it before resolving its effect. So yeah, this can hit channels or swifts. Um, my notes on this is congrats, you're playing this. You're playing with the 29 card deck, 28 really, because you're counting Demanifest as well. So I think this pretty much just goes in every blue deck that I can think of. But yeah, what are your thoughts
Yep.
on the?
Best counter in the game, hits everything, obviously, except units, based on, costed as such.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's the best permission spell in the game. Easy
Yep.
blue staple. A+ for me.
Yep. Same. A plus. All right, Shatter is 2-cost, basic spell, channel speed, deal 2 damage to an enemy, and destroy one of its equipped items. So yeah, why don't you go, Zach?
I think generally this is a sideboard spell. I don't think even Polynor sort of slots at main deck presently. Um, again, we were just talking about rulings. I think there's some confusion on the resolution of spells and how that impacts this particular card as it is currently standing. And I think how it is intended is that this spell can do its damage even if the opposing unit is not equipped with an item to destroy. Um, we'll see where that stands with sort of the interpretation and ruling on some other spells that have sort of similar, dual clause resolution issues. Um, I don't know that you're ever taking this main deck over one of the other two damage spells. We saw Liastrum Discharge. We're going to see Twinflames in a Polynor build. Maybe you want to go over sort of 6 damage spells in some Polynor builds. I don't know that that's true, but this is a solid sideboard spell. I think it's, decently solid sided against Auric. If we see an Auric meta develop, I think there is some play into potentially Thundersteps or maybe another build that is really benefits from an item. I say Thundersteps because Thundersteps with the boots item with hit and run is very potent. And being able to stop that, you know, whack and everything
Yep.
over and over and over is good. So it's a fine sideboard card. I
Yep.
don't like it at 3 in the sideboard. I'd probably have it at 2 in the sideboard.
Yeah. If you haven't picked up, by the way, Zach, any card that has an outstanding ruling that we're not sure on immediately goes to you because you are the lawyer. So I'm just going to leave it to you to explain what the
Yeah.
debacle is with this. But yeah, I actually moved this grade up on the fly right now. I had it initially as a D. Since playing a lot of games, there are definitely, as you mentioned, Thundersteps. I would argue Rogarth with boots. There are just certain units that when boots come on them. Even Vorendell with boots is really scary because he can, if he's already engaged, he can onslaught and start killing and moving. So like in those matchups, I think if you know the player's playing boots, or even if you're not sure and you just like, hey, I cannot deal with a seeker with boots on or a Rogarth with boots on right now because they're cleaving and just weed whacking the whole board. This is an immediate sideboard in card, so I think I moved it up from a D to a C. But yeah, what about you?
I have it as C minus,
Yep.
which I think I like it there. I don't think it's particularly great outside of a sideboard, but it's cool as a
Yeah.
sideboard card.
Yep. Yep. All right. Next card is, come on, Shifting Winds, 2-cost elite spell Swift Speed. As an opponent declares the target of a range attack, to redirect the attack to a different unit within 6 of the original target. Um, I'll go with this. I just think it's a little niche. The only person that I would want this in my deck in is probably against Palinor. Um, I don't know. Ingor, not really. Like I feel like, or who the other range caster is, Landriel. I mean, Morta's not really shooting that much. Like I'm not. I don't think that there's really like Palinor is the one where it's like he's playing a gun line, right? And you can consistently say, okay, I'm going to get shot at some point in the game. But like even
Yeah.
Shattered Throne with crossbowmen, like hitting the crossbowmen to redirect this is great. But that's only one. Like there's games that I haven't drawn a crossbowman and I feel really bad. But I just don't know if there's any other units that are like. or like faction or decks really that have so many guns in them that you're like, ah, yeah, this wants to go in my deck. And that being said, I think it's a strong sideboard card for certain matchups.
Yeah, I think that that's where I'm at. It's I don't see it being in main deck ever. I see it as a great sideboard card. The issue with it is what does it side in against? And it
Yep.
probably is Polynor, but I don't know that there are a ton of other locations for it right now. Um, so I think it's a really good card. I think it's really, really good in Landriel if you can find, use for it.
Yeah.
Um, and that's where it's at. I think if there, comes to be some sort of a meta build that really focuses on ranged attacks or is, a really heavy gunline play, even maybe more so than Polynor, this card is really cool as a
Yeah.
sideboard card. But yeah, it just doesn't really hit enough matchups yet, I think. I have it at a C plus. Really, it's probably like a C or a C minus.
Yeah.
Only because of its lack of matchups presently where it's super relevant.
I gave it a C minus only because the within 6 inches of the original target is also very limiting. Like the only time I want to play this is when I can redirect it to hit one of my opponent's targets, right? Doing redirecting this so it hits one of my only friendly, like I don't want to play that, right? That's not two costs for essentially protection within 6 inch protection. Doesn't like yeah, maybe there's a couple of scenarios where you'd want to play that, but like to me that's not the main use case. I want to redirect this back at the attacker or another enemy unit. And with only a 6 inch range to do that, it's very easy to get outranged by that. So I think it is a bit clunky to kind of pull off what you want with it at times. Or the opponent can, if they're smart, can play around it. So yeah, C minus for me. All right, Spellbound. Jeez, I always call this card Spellbound Big Belly because I think Bahig'udjin. Oh my gosh, you want to take a shot at pronouncing this?
No idea, no idea. But I believe it's a reference to what Portuguese for big belly or something along those lines. So
Yeah,
that's what we've been calling it. Yeah.
yeah. So it's a 1 attack, 3/1 damage, 5 speed, 10 defense, 8 HP, and it has protection 2. Yeah, why don't you go first on this one?
I think it's really good. It's a two-cost bodyguard, which, it has limiting stats, of course, but it's a two-cost bodyguard with protection too. I think it's really pivotal in certain blue builds, particularly Polynor, but I think it can see play elsewhere as well. Um, and it's, yeah, very welcome in seeker-focused
Yeah.
strategies like Polynor. Um, I like it a lot for two cost.
Yeah, is this the only 2 drop that can pick up relics? Because we have the
Oh,
corpse and the
interesting.
Terroric Beast, and then yeah, the totem. I think that's it, right? The 4. So
You might be right. Yeah.
yeah,
That's
so
pretty wild, actually. That's a good point.
yeah, I mean it is limited by its speed 5, but yeah, it's pretty interesting that you can sneak this thing on the board pretty easily and pick up a relic. Um, yeah, I think I don't know. I this guy is hard to make cuts and make the cut in a lot of my lists. Overall, I feel like blue, just like the units, are just subpar. And other than in Polynor where you have to take them, in like my Morta and Landriel decks, I'm almost always taking all Shattered Throne or all Legion cards outside of like the Guardian and stuff. So I
I
think it was
think
a
I'd
great.
like to try this. I think I'd like to try this in a Landriel build at some point. But yeah, admittedly, I haven't yet.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's pretty good. Could be sleeping on this a bit because I haven't had. I'll do a little disclaimer mid episode. I'm not a huge fan of Polynor. It's just not my play style, so I have not played too many games with him. Actually, any games with him. So like cards like this, I just don't have a lot of experience with because I'm not putting it, like I said, in my Mordor or Londril deck. So I gave it a B minus. But I love that 2-drop pick up the relics. That's great. Protection 2 is also really great on a card that I like. Typically with my 2-drops, I really want to just throw them away. Like they're great body blockers and stuff like that. This has another way to get in the way and be annoying with protection 2, right? But if it also can do something where it can pick up a relic for me, great. I love it. So yeah, B minus.
I'm actually, yeah, I'm really high on this card actually. I got it at a B plus. I like it a lot. I think you're right. I think it may struggle to find its niche, its deck. Um, but in a vacuum, I think this card is really good.
Yep. Yep. All right, we got Spellbound Devourer, 8 cost unique. It is 4 attack, 4/2 damage, 4 range, 5 speed, 13 defense, 16 health. Melee expert 2. This unit gets +2 attack on melee damage on melee attacks. Essence Binder 3. Whenever an enemy is defeated, this unit activation you gain 3 echo. Pull 4. Whenever this unit scores a ranged hit, it may pull the defender up to 4 inches. All right, why don't you go first?
I mean, this card's S tier for coolness. Its model is so cool. Its card is so cool. Really good flavor too. Um, but that's to say, I don't have a ton to say about the card itself, and that is both its upside and its downside. I think it is very good, but I think it's appropriately costed at 8. I don't think it's like an incredible bomb like the Guardian is. I don't think it is going to be doing anything super crazy like you might see with, Sestinar, like we talked about last episode. But it has a solid mix of abilities. It has solid stats. It is just solidly good and solidly good for 8. Do I think it sees play in every single Conclave build? No. I think it often is going to get cut for space in some of the dual faction decks, particularly when it's competing against Thrice Murdered, Sestinar, the Herald, Rogarth. You might be cutting it for one of those at some point. If you're trying to balance your curve a little bit. But I have almost no negative to say about it. It's just solidly good.
Yeah. Um, I'm a little conflicted. This guy's on the bubble for me as an 8-drop. I think that he, how's the best? I'm not a fan of units that are well rounded, if that makes sense. Like he has the range 4, pull 4 with also melee expert 2, and those things are like kind of conflicting. So like at speed 5, there isn't a situation like there are situations, but I would rather charge with this model every single time and get the melee expert to hit at 6/4 than ever risk doing an advance and trying to shoot and potentially hit and pull them in. Like that to me isn't really worth it. The only time you want to do that is if he's trying to like sit on a relic and then I can benefit from like this 4 speed, or if you can do like a unique play of like pull a model out that is contesting a relic or something like that that allows your guy to pick them up for free, right? So like yeah, there are those niche cases, but in general, like I think that the abilities on his card don't synergize very well. I'd rather just have pull 4 be something like I'd rather have him lose the range and lose pull 4, be melee expert, essence finder 3, and get something else essentially. Um, and that's kind of where I fall on him. Is just I think that he's just a little bit too like a amalgamation, just like his card, right? Of different abilities, and so maybe it's not the most efficient for the cost. Yeah, that's where I'm at. I gave it a because of all that. I gave it a B minus.
I gave it an A minus. I still think it's really good. Um, But again, you're right. It's not sort of a skew unit or it doesn't fit a particular role necessarily. But they don't have anything bad to say about it.
Yeah.
I'm on A minus for it.
Yep. I wish it would have leaned heavier into the like. I think it's a melee beater, right? Melee expert 2 is such a strong ability. I think that that's what you want to lean into. So to me, it's like why give it the range and the pull 4? I think I would have rather seen a little bit of like of a bump in like I would love to see it have the ability to like hit and regen, right? Like a little bit more defensive stuff. So like the Flesh Ripper, I think when it
Sure.
hits whatever that ability is called to gain health, I think that would have been cooler on it. So something like that. All right, we have Spellbound Gargoyle, 3 cost basic. unit. It is a 1 attack, 3/1 damage, 8 speed, 12 defense, 8 health, flying. While moving, this unit can pass over any obstacles. Nimble, this unit can move without provoking retaliation. I'll let you go on this one first.
I like this. I think it's just an all around solid unit. It's flying and nimble on an 8 speed body for 3 echo. I think it gives Conclave, but particularly mono blue Conclave, exactly what it needed at this price point in terms of a mobile unit for a variety of plays, namely sort of grabbing relics cheaply. Um, I think it's very good. I think it sees play elsewhere as well in certain situations. It might be a sideboard card that comes in particular matchups or on particular boards. Um, but I like this card a lot. I think it's really good for 3 costs. It's squishy as all heck, um, but it's fast and it moves and it gets where it wants to go. I like it.
Yeah, I like it a lot too. I think that, the if maybe getting a little ahead of ourselves in terms of like the overall theme of the faction and stuff, but like in terms of the units, I feel like the units for blue is like kind of like the theme is like range and like a little bit tricksy and stuff, like playing cards like synergizing and stuff like that. And you can hate me for this for drawing, relations to Magic the Gathering, but I wish that more blue units would have followed this design type. And when I think about like blue and Magic the Gathering, it's evasive, right? So it's flying in that, and flying in this game and Magic is a little bit more, a little different. Like to me, this is definitely more on par with what I would like to see. The shade, which is the fallen blue unit that's unique to Morta, right? That to me is like typical Conclave and should be like the more the design. It's flying, doesn't hit very hard. It has phasing, right? So like things that are a little bit more evasive and like harder to pin down is what I would have liked to see. I think Conclave evolve into. And then you can still do the mage with like the range and stuff like that too, like the humans, and kind of differentiate. But I do like that how utility and like just flying around the board, grabbing relics, contesting relics, right? Like things that are like this thing isn't killing things; it's just being annoying and flying everywhere and kind of doing stuff, right? I think that is what I would like to see them kind of expand more into. So with that being said, I gave it a B.
And an A-. I'm pretty high on this unit. I think it's really good.
All right. Got the next one, Telekinesis. Place a unit anywhere. Oh, sorry, 3 cost Echo Elite spell, channel speed. Place a unit anywhere within 5 inches of its current position, ignoring obstacles. Yeah, I think that this ability to reposition your opponent's models is very strong, and um, this does it with no strings attached. I mean, one of one of the most annoying things in miniature games I find is when people touch my models. Not like physically, like I'm fine with people handling my models, but like I put a model in a position for really specific reason. I really hate it when people move my models and now I have to like recalibrate like my turn and stuff, right? That sucks. So yeah, this spell does that. So I think it's a great effect. What about you, Zach?
I think this is really, really versatile. It doesn't require a specific board state. I think it has sort of just endless utility. 3 cost is not cheap, but it is a channel. It is going to be reduced on conclave terrain. I think this is another blue staple, and I think it's often just a staple in anything blue affiliated and even at 2 slots of the deck. I like this card a ton, and I will be playing 2 in basically anything blue.
Yep. Yep. This is the spells that you want in blue that are just always going to be in your deck essentially. It spells like this, which is why I love spell immunity on my models because it's just like, hey, don't touch my stuff. Like like just get that out of
Yeah,
here. So yeah, it's very very strong. I gave it an A minus.
I gave it a plus,
Oh,
and I think it earns it.
all right. Moving on. We got Twinflames, 2 cost, basic spell, channel speed, choose up to 2 enemies, deal 2 damage to each of them. You can go first.
Yeah, I think spell is decent in a vacuum. Its damage to echo ratio is it's on the rate, but of course it's split among 2 targets, which isn't always super beneficial. Um, in the sense that, spreading damage doesn't necessarily allow you to focus fire and remove things from the board. Um, that said, the spell is fantastic in Polynor. This is his bread and butter spell because Empower is making this thing deal 3 damage to 2 targets and becomes a 6 damage spell for 2, which is above rate, very potent. 3 damage to 2 different targets is frankly a lot better than 2 damage to 2 different targets. Just the way that the game ends up working out with HP across models. Outside of empowered spell activations, this is still pretty just okay. That's I think the one downside to the card is that it's just okay. If it's not in an empowered spell activation, but it's still totally playable. And coming out not empowered of the graveyard for Polynor is still pretty good. So
Yep.
solid.
Yeah.
I don't know where it sees play outside of Polynor, but absolutely a 3 of staple in him.
Yep. Yeah. The damage ratio is right on par. 4 damage for 2 echo. Like if you have empower, it's even better. So that's right on it. To me, again, more magic, equivalents or whatnot. But this feels like the shock or lightning strike equivalent to MTG. The only problem is that it's in Conclave. So like that's why I'm excited to see what the Primal Blood Conclave dual faction seeker is. I think this could potentially be right up there. Um, their alley. But yeah, I like this spell. I just think that blue is kind of playing more of a control game. So channeling like outside of Polynor, or Polynor wants to be more aggressive. So that's why it's not in Mandra or Morta. But yeah, I like the spell a
Yeah,
lot. I give it a B.
I give it a B plus. I think it's carried, of course, by the fact that Polynor exists, but um, it's really good in Polynor.
Yeah. I feel like overall this episode, your blue bias is coming in, and like for the
For
listeners,
sure.
I would just
For
lower
sure.
Zach's grade by like maybe a one degree for all the cards.
Could be. Could be.
All right, last card. We have Virtahn Battlecaster, 6 cost elite, 3 attack, 4/2, 6 speed, 13 defense, 12 HP, spell strike 1, which we've already gone over, and empower spell 1. Yeah, I'll let you take this last one as well.
This one I'm a little torn on, and I'll just, I guess, give my grade right at the start for this one to explain where I'm torn. I gave it a B because I think that this is a solid card, and I think that it presents another source of empower spell that isn't, frankly, garbage, like the Scholar. Um, it's a solid card. It's going to do solid damage, but getting it into combat to where it's making its most impact and actually giving it the damage so that it can make its most impact is just requiring extra cards, which isn't always great, right? We don't necessarily want our units, particularly our 6 cost sort of like damage dealing unit, to require extra cards to facilitate it doing its own job, which is a little problematic. It's a little saved in, say, Polynor because you have not only your hand but also your discard from which to draw sources for spell strike and or empower spell. It's going to require something though to really make the most use of it. It's going to have to either survive a couple hits in order to be able to get off a double attack, for 10 damage or something at another point, or you're going to need that Liastrum stride or something to get it into combat.
Yeah.
And that's where I'm at with it. I think it's a totally solid unit. I think it unfortunately requires extra stuff to really facilitate its coolness.
Yeah, I agree. This to me is going to, like what I want the as I mentioned previously, the dual faction that as you can tell, I'm actually super excited for the Primal Blood Conclave caster. Like I want more of this where they are just being super slippery with Liastrum stride, weaving in and out, and just like getting into melee, double swinging, doing 10 damage. I think that's great. That being said, like to me, she wants to make use of Liastrum Stride, which means that she's not benefiting from Empower Spell that turn, right? Which kind of feels bad.
If we saw something like for the red blue upcoming seeker, if we saw something like every time you cast a spell, one of your allies can make a free move action or
Oh,
something, That would be
Brutal.
so cool. Yeah.
You're stealing Vorndell's rather legacy, and
Yeah, I suppose.
yeah, no, that would be amazing. Yeah, I don't know what to expect. I do think that I'm coming up on her. I just adjusted my grade. Had her at a C. I'm moving her up to a C plus, but um, I just think that yeah, she needs a little bit more to make work, and I'm excited to see what the future holds to maybe see if there's other tools that will make her go. So,
Yeah,
but
yeah. Like I said, I had her B. It's I think a B minus is
yeah,
probably more appropriate, but she's a tough one to grade just because she is solid, but requires some extra work.
yeah, she's just fighting her faction identity, which is the more control style play, playing off swifts and stuff. Because like Spellstrike doesn't help you if you're holding mana to counter or do things that are swift speed, right, and stuff.
Yeah.
So that's my big problem is like she just feels a little bit out of place currently, and that's why I'm hoping with primal typical theme being like aggression and stuff and being damaged that maybe she finds a home there and gets a lot more play. So. All right, that is going to do it for the card review. Why don't we go over all thoughts? Zach, why don't you start first?
Yeah, I mean, Conclave is what sucked me into the game. It's certainly my favorite faction. I think it's one of the more powerful factions in the game. I think its access to some of the best spells in the game just really bring up its deck quality. Um, it may not have the same unit quality that some of the other factions have, but I think it's a very powerful faction, and I think it's particularly powerful in dual faction seekers. And I think I've said this, multiple times before, but the spell quality is just so high that if you can bring in high quality efficient units from another color, it just is automatically incredibly strong. Um, I think the seekers for Conclave have some really unique and different styles of gameplay, which is really cool, right? You have Polynor, who's a blaster, you have Landriel, who's pretty solidly a control caster, and you have Morida, who's kind of this like tempo control, recursion engine thing. And it's cool that this faction kind of supports all of those play styles, sometimes to its detriment,
Hmm.
truly, in terms of trying to support three very distinct play styles within a single card color, but it does it well.
Hmm.
I like it a lot. I'm really high on Conclave, but again, it might be my blue bias. It's absolutely my favorite faction. I really enjoy playing it. I really enjoy playing all three of the Seekers that can use it presently, and look forward to sort of where they take the faction in the future.
Yep, I think that's a fair assessment. I think Conclave is very strong. Just it's 23 cards, which is the second most, Fallen being the first, and then Primal and Shattered Throne being tied for last. So this is right in the middle in terms of card selection. I do think that it has these some of the strongest spells in the game. I would argue that for spell quality, like it is the best. But the other side of that coin is I do think that these are the weakest units in the game compared to the other factions. And I think maybe it could be that the spells are actually holding the units back, right? Like if they give both strong units, like maybe that's
Yeah.
why we don't see good low cost units, is because these spells and you can flood the board with activations and units could be really brutal for opponents. So yeah, I think
One
I
that kind of go ahead. I'm sorry.
no, 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 go ahead. I was just kind of
I was
wrapping up.
gonna. That was a good thought, and I kind of want to interrupt you to then ask because I think this is a fun place to do it, and we can certainly touch on it again when we do our next episode where we're doing Shattered Throne. But how do you feel now that we've done sort of three faction color reviews in terms of how well the factions do as mono color? Where do you feel Conclave sits when you're playing Polynor versus Vorendal versus Thundersteps versus, as we'll get to, Sigrith? I mean, that I think is interesting. I feel like blue presently kind of supports the monocolor perhaps a bit better than some of the other factions. But curious your take on that.
Yeah, I laugh because as I already mentioned, I haven't played Polynor ever, but
That's
um,
fair. That's fair.
I would probably put it tied for with Primal Blood and Thundersteps. Vorendell definitely being the weakest. I just think that his he is very draw dependent to hit damage spells as well as high value fallen. So when you don't hit that, you're going to have a bad time. So just for that reason alone, I put him at the bottom. But I think I've mentioned in other episodes, Vorendell has the most potential to get better in with more card selection. And then I think Sigurith is just hands down the strongest right now for primal colors. So
Do you think that that is because of, as we'll get to in a future episode, tune in,
mhm.
the unit quality itself in Shattered Throne, just the ability to play to the board so strongly?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that
Yeah,
Shatter Throne
yeah.
has hands down the best units in the game. So
And
so
I think
yeah,
that that's where I struggle with just kind of thinking about Conclave, because you're right. I mean, I feel like it does support that monocolor very well, but its unit quality
yeah.
can be tough at times. So
Yeah, I mean,
interesting thoughts.
we already mentioned it. You can't win the game without playing on board and picking up relics, right? So like that's the lens I'm viewing everything from is like, hey, I
Yeah,
want good unit selection, and then what can my spells do to, win me the game? But you have to play on board. You're never gonna see like the typical blue white decks that are all spells, and then like I don't know, they have
yeah,
some kind of like spell damage mechanic or milling your opponent or I don't know something like that. I haven't played. I
yeah, or just
Yeah,
minimal units
I'm
slash creatures in this
I,
example. Yeah,
right. I was never a constructed player in Magic the Gathering. I will preface I am a limited player, so like the crazy things blue white can do, like I am very much oblivious to because I did not enjoy constructed formats. So yeah, before we close out, I just wanted to say that the last couple weeks I've just feel so fulfilled by the community and stuff. Like I've made great relations and just people, having the courage to come up to Zach and I and just like talk about the game in general and stuff. It's really fulfilling for me. So I just wanted to, give a thank you to all our listeners and stuff and encourage you that if you have thoughts, we love, even if you disagree with it, we love talking about Malediction. It's like one of our favorite things to do. So please, come up to us. We're super approachable. I would like to thank. I just made friends with the other day with Loki and some of the Germans that have been listening in. So thank you. Having great conversations there, and just yeah, we really appreciate all the interaction that we are having, and we want to, our main goal with this is to grow the community from a competitive aspect, right? We like playing competitive games, so we'd love to, give a space where people can talk about the game and bounce ideas off each other. So, yeah, do you have anything else to add, Zach, or before we
absolutely.
sign
No,
off?
no, that was great. It has been great. Yeah, feel free to leave comments, shoot us messages, talk to us on Discord or wherever. We love it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, so if you could do us a
thanks.
favor and you are enjoying the content, please make sure to like and subscribe for future comment. Leave those comments down there. We will definitely respond if you have any questions or any thoughts, or hit us up on the Discord. With that being said, thank you all for watching, and we will see you next time.